covered area. They just camp out there and wait till their line and to be seen in clinic. Now, any maternity cases, any pediatric cases, and then any emergencies, then would go straight to the hospital. Otherwise, you go to be seen in the clinic by the providers. So we're really busy in the months of October and November with a lot of patients. And then we did some major triaging and able to get some of those numbers down at the gate. This is called the cuisine, which in French is the kitchen. And it's a large building on our property that is like an outpatient facility for patients that can stay there while they're still getting treatment. They're not hospitalized anymore. They've been released from the hospital, but they still have to come in every day for dressing changes at the wound clinic, or still have to have follow-up appointments. And so they can stay here. Also, families will stay here while their family members are in the hospital. So they'll stay out here, and they can cook out there, and then they'll bring in food every day and take care of their family members. These are two sides to the administration building. So one side is administration, and the other side is the nursing school, where I spent a lot of time as well, there and in the hospital. You can kind of see patients that are waiting for clinic. This is just an open corridor outside, and so they'll just, once they have their appointment or they've made it up to registration, then they'll wait on these benches for their appointment time that day. More patients waiting. The bottom corner are patients waiting for wound clinic. So they'll have appointments. They're usually surgical patients, a lot of infections, terrible infections, and so they'll come in every day for dressing changes. This is the registration area. So once they come in, past they're allowed entered past the gate, and they're given a number. Then they'll come to registration. They'll check their vital signs, and then they'll give them a number to go to clinic to be seen. More patients waiting. This is the main corridor you walk to actually enter to the main hospital area. And so people are coming in and out every day. Family members, you'll see at the end, people were camping out. A lot of family will just sleep outside as well. So you'll see people sleeping everywhere. And it's kind of shocking at first when you first get there. You think, wow, people have to sleep outside on the ground. But after living there for a while, I came to realize that that is actually normal for them. Even at their homes, they will sleep outside on the ground because it's cooler than being inside the building. So that's pretty normal for them to just, they have little mats, they're little prayer mats, and they'll just lay them down and sleep on them. These are a couple of patients. They were being seen in wound clinic. The young fellow I took care of in the hospital, and then he continued with follow-ups in the clinic with an infection in his leg, and also he'd had a surgery done for a fracture in his leg as well. And then the girl, she had osteomyelitis. She had several different parts of her leg with infection, and she was getting treatment. She'd already been in the hospital for many, many weeks when I got there in October. And when I left just now, her treatment's still ongoing. So she's not in the hospital anymore, but she continues to be seen by the doctors in clinic, continuing to have treatment for the infection. So this is getting into the actual hospital, nurses station, where I spent most of my time. So the picture up on the top is our wound care cart. So that had all of our supplies for doing dressing changes in the hospital and wound care. Very, very primitive looking compared to wound care here in the States. And then our central nurses station, and then all of our wards branched off of there. This is how we prepared our antibiotics. We'd have a jar of saline, and then we would have, I think I've got a picture, it's pretty small. You can see some ampules up there on the top corner. So little glass vials we'd have to pop open, and then the antibiotic medication, you'd mix it with saline, or we had glass vials of powder we had to mix up. So it's like going back into, I don't know how far back it would go for medicine here in the States, but we were mixing all of our own medications and scheduling it all. So a lot of what pharmacy would do for us here, the nurses were doing there. These guys up in the corner, they are folding pieces of gauze that will then be sterilized, and that will be our sterile gauze swabs that we use for everything, for dressings, for everything. So it's just big sheets of gauze they're cutting up. Our cotton swabs were also big, huge sheets of cotton that we would just cut up, and then we would just pour alcohol over it, and that was our cotton swabs. This is our storage closet for all of our IV fluids. So most of those were made at the hospital and then put into the glass jars. So just more pictures of the nurses' station and some of the patients that would come in and get, every day they would get daily IV antibiotics. This is, on the left is the pediatric intensive care. On the right is the pediatric unit. So a lot of parents with the babies and children, and so the moms will be sleeping on the floor. The kids might be in the beds, or they might be on the floor with the parents as well. A couple interesting cases that we had. We saw all kinds of crazy medical conditions. The bottom picture was a patient that came in with tetanus, and when he first arrived, he was doing okay, and then he quickly progressed to the point where he couldn't breathe anymore, and they did, this picture, they're doing an emergency tracheostomy, so they're opening up his, cutting a hole through his trachea and putting a tube in so that he could breathe. He actually survived. That was a miracle, and he was in the hospital for several weeks, but he did get to go home. The other guy on the upper corner was a very severe moto accident. So we would get a lot of trauma cases. Almost every day we'd have some kind of moto accident come in, or vehicle accident. And this guy ended up having his leg amputated because of the severity of the injury. The injuries were really severe most of the time with these accidents. A lot of brain injuries. One kid was paralyzed. So that was very common. This actually was the kid that got paralyzed. So he was hit by a vehicle, and he ended up being paralyzed from his waist down, and also both legs were fractured. So he was in casts on both legs. He was with us for a couple months in October and November, and then he was discharged. So I don't really know what happened to him afterwards. The picture with me in it is the day that he was discharged to go to the cuisine to continue with outpatient therapy. Just some other pictures of some of the other patients we've had. We've had a lot of patients comes in with a lot of burns. This girl had some burns. More accidents. That's a pediatric ward again. This boy, I think I shared in my newsletter about him. He was also a burn patient. He was from Ghana, so he knew just a little bit of English, not much though, but just, you could say, hi, how are you? And that was about it. He was also a miracle. He had more than 50% of his body was burned. He was hunting with friends in the fields, and they lit a fire to try to, they were hunting rats, and so they tried to scare them out with the fire, and he got caught in it. All of his arms and legs, all of his face, most of his back and chest burned. So he was with us. He came in January, and I heard this week that he finally went back to Ghana this week. He's been released from the hospital for a while, but he was continuing with outpatient therapy, getting a lot of skin grafts. And it was a miracle to see him finally taking a few steps and walking. And then when he was living out at the cuisine, he would come by the hospital pretty much every day and kind of check in and say hi. And He saw the Jesus film a lot while he was there. We have chaplains that go around and talk to all the patients and share the gospel with them, and then we have TV screens that are playing the Jesus film and other evangelistic films all the time, so he heard the gospel a lot. And I know that the chaplains were going and visiting with him and his family as well. He's somebody I'm praying for, that the gospel will touch his heart and his family's heart. This is just kind of interesting. This is one of my babies that I took care of, and she was about a month old, but this is how babies get bathed in Togo. And you'll see the brand newborns, a day or two old, and they're already getting scrubbed down. Hot water, and they really scrub them. So, yeah, they learn to be tough from the very beginning. This is the same baby. So she had meningitis, and I got to take care of her as she was almost towards the end of her antibiotic treatment, so she was doing pretty well by then, but she got to go home after probably about 3 weeks with us. Another baby I took care of. So I had never taken care of anything but adults before I went to Togo. And when I first got there, we had a lot of other nursing staff that took care of peds, so at first I was just taking care of adults, but we started having more of a nursing shortage, and by January, February, most of our patients were all pediatric. So then I had to learn how to take care of them. So I'm not an expert, but I definitely know a lot more about taking care of babies now than before. So this baby, when she came in, she was a twin, and I'm pretty sure she had been premature. She came to us already, I think a month old. She was still really, really tiny, and she would stop breathing. She would just stop breathing. And so we had a couple days where we were constantly having to stimulate her to keep her breathing, and she was on a breathing machine, and she finally was doing better, and I think this was the day that she got discharged to go home. We have a lot of kids that come to us for cancer treatment. So this boy, Faisal, is from Benin. So he comes from Benin and is getting chemotherapy, and he's been with us. He'll stay at the cuisine and then come in for a few days, get treatment. We'll hospitalize him, give him chemo, and then he'll go back to the cuisine and then follow up a week or two later. He's been with us, I think, for about 3 or 4 months, and he's gone back to Benin once or twice during that time, but most of the time he just stays in Mongo. And we have a few other kids like that from Burkina and Togo as well that are getting chemo. But he's really cute, and he comes in all the time, and he's made friends with some other kids. So this little boy has been with us, I think, for about a month with a dislocated hip, and so he's in traction, pulling on his leg with weights, trying to get his hip back into place. And so Faisal and him have kind of become friends. They're the same age, so I got a picture of them together. So one thing about the patients in the hospital and then patients that are staying out at the cuisine is that people that are from the same tribal groups that speak the same language, even though they didn't know each other before, they quickly get to know each other and become friends and start helping each other out. And so you'll see a lot of relationships develop there. It's really cool. One of the other things I did, so I worked in the hospital taking care of patients, but I also worked in kind of some admin roles. So worked with Susan Harris, who is kind of the supervisor for the nurses and also helps with the nursing school program. And so she had a few projects she wanted me to help her with. So one was we had received a new syringe pump, and this was the first one, and since then we've gotten 6 more. And so my job was to learn how to use it and then train all of the nurses how to use it as well. So this is me teaching the nurses how to use the syringe pump. And then I just have a bunch of pictures of the nursing staff. The nurses' aides wear blue, and then the nurses wear white, so you can kind of see who's who. But they all become your friends really quickly, just working together. Most of the nurses are all believers. The nurses' aides, a few of them are Christians, but many of them are Muslim. but they're all really neat people. So this was Christmas Day. So we were the lucky ones that got to work on Christmas Day, and I was in charge, so I gave Koku, the nurse, permission to bring his guitar, and we sang a few songs, a few Christmas carols. So this was just a moment where we kind of had a break from, we weren't real busy with the patients, and so they got to sing a few songs, and we got a picture. I did get to observe a little bit in OR, not a whole lot, but I did spend about 2 or 3 days with the surgeons and got to observe some surgeries as well. So this was one of the, I think, orthopedic case where they were doing a shoulder, putting a large rod in the guy's shoulder for a humerus fracture. This is back to the gate where when we had the 100 to 200 patients at the gate. And so we did a major triage project. We've got Alan Niles, the medical director, and then Dr. Natir, our surgeon, and we basically went through over several mornings and got everyone's vital signs and all of their reasons for being there, and then really determined who really was the most urgent cases to be seen, and then who would be seen later. I kind of skip here a minute. So this family, this is our nursing supervisor, Yalvi. He's Togolese, and so he's the supervisor of all the nursing staff. And me and you can see a couple of my roommates there, other nurses too. His family really, he works a lot with the nurses and really helps us. He's just amazing as a supervisor, and we got to know his family too. He also has a church plant in his house, a small house church, where they're trying to reach to the Muslim community in Mongo. All right. I think it didn't save some of my changes I made, so sorry for the pictures. So these are just pictures of Mongo, kind of what it looked like in town when I went to Market. So this is one of the main streets in Market. This is inside the market, so it's open air, it's dirt everywhere. We don't really have any paved roads at all. There's just the main highway through town and everything else is dirt. So you go to Market and you walk around, and there's all these ladies with their stalls, and they're all trying to get you to buy the same thing. Every stall is selling the same thing, but they all want you to buy theirs. And so cucumbers and carrots and tomatoes and onions and pretty much, yeah, this is where we buy all of our groceries. And if it's not there, then it would be in this store. So we have a few buildings that we call boutiques, would be the closest you're going to get to a supermarket in Mongo. So this is the store on the outside, and then this is what it looks like on the inside, and you just kind of rummage through everything to kind of see if they have what you want, or just kind of look at what they've got and see if you discover something. We discovered Pringles there. That was really exciting. It was really exciting when I found that they had paper towels. That was new. What else? Canned corn. That was something that I found at the end of my time. When I first got there, they didn't have. So common things we would buy here would be like rice, powdered milk, because that's the only kind of milk you can get, toilet paper. Once in a while, they might have shampoo and lotion. And yeah, this is the main road. We call it Hospital Road. So this is the main road that once you are here, then the hospital is the next thing really on this road. Past the hospital then is a military base, and then you're pretty much out in the bush. We've got our motor repair shop here on the corner. All right, another ministry I got to be involved with was working with the nursing students, and this was really fun to work with them. And this is actually a video. We'll see if it'll play. They were doing their OB rotation, so they were practicing with a mannequin, and baby was being born, but it's not gonna. I don't think it's gonna play. Okay. I have the videos on that same, it's a little going to be hard to get to though. Well, we'll just keep moving forward, and then maybe I can show some videos at the end. We can get to them. So this is the class of nursing students. When I got there, we had 16. There were 3 gals, and then the rest are all men. They had started with 18 students. 2 had not made it, and then in December we lost 1 more female student. So now we've got 15 students. So this was kind of a Christmas party. We had Sharon Rahali is the director of the nursing program. You can see her in red in the bottom picture. So I worked closely with her and with Susan Harris with the students. We're going to jump around a little bit here. Okay, so this is Susan and Sharon. So Sharon's in pink and then Susan in blue. So Susan worked closely with both of them. Sharon is the director of the nursing program for both the hospital in the north, in Mongo, and then there's a nursing school in the southern hospital as well. So she directs both of those, and she's constantly traveling back and forth between the two. And then Susan manages a lot of the details and scheduling for just the nursing school up in the north. So I helped Susan out with a lot of scheduling of clinicals for the students, and I worked as a clinical instructor with the students in the hospital. And then at the end, we'll come back to some pictures of that, but at the end I also taught a course in April, a 3-week course combined with a couple other instructors, the musculoskeletal system. This is Bellamore Church is the Baptist church in town. So it did not exist before the hospital opened, but when the hospital opened, they brought a lot of workers from the south who were Christians. And so they wanted a church to be able to go to and attend, and so that's kind of when this church was created. So most of the hospital staff that are believers attend this church. And most Sundays I would go there. If I was not working, then I would usually go there in the mornings. I don't know if this video will play. No? Okay. We'll keep going. So that's just a video of the choir in the church. One thing really cool about Togo, and I remember when the Fives showed some videos, some pictures of their trip 2 years ago or last year. The choirs in the churches is really amazing, and it's really neat to see. They had a baptism in March. They had 3 members of the church baptized from Bellamore Church in March, and so that was really exciting to get together and celebrate that baptism with them. This is another ministry in town. It's not run by the mission at all. This is run by a Togolese family. So this couple are believers, and they attend the Bellamore Church, and they have this foundation where they go and find orphans in the villages and in Mongo and other outlying villages, and they bring them to their center, and they teach them different skills. So they have a sewing school, and they teach them how to sew. And I would go there and have things made for me. They also have a hairdressing school, and so they'll teach girls how to do all of the fancy braiding and hairdressing. And then they also have a bakery, and they have a computer school too. So they're teaching, these kids will stay there and work through the program until they graduate from high school, and they'll learn a skill. And then when they graduate, if they study sewing, they will give them a sewing machine, and then they can go out and they can start working. and there's, I think, a licensing test or something they have to take. But through this ministry, they also are sharing the gospel with these kids, and they're studying the Bible with them. So a lot of the kids will attend the church as well. So many students have come to know the Lord through this program as well. I think it's going to show me. Okay. All right. We've jumped over to just one picture of the missionary community in Mongo. So we have a very large community of missionaries between people that are medical, that are working at the hospital. We also have Hope Radio, so we have several families that are working with that, and then we've got teachers that are teaching them Ks. So I was going to count it up, and I didn't count how many, but it's like a little village just of missionaries there. So we gather together on Sunday nights and have a church service, and then we'll have different activities throughout the year. I think this was an activity we had in October.
That's where Gary and Jimmy were just a couple hours ago.
Yep. Yeah. So this was a Christian wedding that I got to go to in December, and this was really exciting because the bride had been a Muslim, and she had converted to Christianity, and now she works as a chaplain in the hospital. Her name is Lamatu, and she was older woman for Togolese standards. They usually get married very young, and she was single, and it was just really exciting that she had met a Christian guy, that they were getting married, and then also just the witness to her family, because most of her family is all Muslim, and they weren't sure that any of them were going to come to the wedding. And this wedding was a little bit different than usual, because usually the weddings are all held in a church, but because they wanted her family to come, they held it in the road, in the street, near the house where she had been living. And so that way all of the Muslim family members and friends would feel okay to attend the wedding. So there were a lot of guests.
1 minute.
Yeah. A lot of non-invited guests too. It was kind of fun to watch all the kids that came from the street and were kind of joined the wedding festivities too. Let's see if we get more pictures of it. This is the house that I lived in when the whole time I was there. It's called the minister's house. The man that owns the property is a minister and has some kind of position in the government, so that's why it's called the minister's house. When they first rented it, I think they've had it for about 3 or 4 years, there were 8 nurses that lived in it. So it has 4 bedrooms upstairs, 4 bedrooms downstairs, so they could have 8 short-term nurses come and live there. When I arrived, there were 6 of us, and then some left. We don't have as many short-term American nurses working at the hospital anymore, so actually when I left, I moved out of that house a week before I left, and then they are not renting it anymore, because we just don't have enough people to keep it full anymore. So there's some other houses in town that they're using now for housing. This was the view from the roof of the house. So this is looking back over part of Mongo, back behind our house. There's kind of a cream-colored building there that's the mosque, this closest mosque, so we would hear that every day at 4 in the morning, and then throughout the day as well, that call to prayer. This is the view from the front, so you can, just right outside our gate was the main highway through town, with heavy traffic, huge trucks going through, so we would bike that back and forth to the hospital morning and night, so we always had to be careful with the traffic. It's just another view of the highway. Back behind the house as well. And the neighbors, looking over, you can see the mosque there too. We had 3 guys that were our guards. So they 24/7, one of them was there guarding the gate and just the entrance to the house. And so these 3 guys they would rotate shifts, and they were all very dear to us as girls, Salu, Sukala, and Sammy. And they did a really good job. And anytime we needed something, we had a question about a flat tire or where to get something repaired, they always knew. And sometimes they would take it for us, or sometimes they would tell us where to go. But they were very helpful and good guards. Sukala in the middle retired. Once the house was not rented anymore, he was going to retire. And then the other 2 went on to other positions, guarding other locations for the hospital. And then this was, let's see if it'll go back. You can't see Sukala very well, but one day he took me and my roommate Nichelle and showed us where to buy this Togolese meal called pat, and so he showed us how to eat it. And so we were eating pat here out in the front patio area. So that's a view of the hospital from a big water tower that we have behind the hospital. So that's the building facility. This is hospital property. They have a little farm where they're growing, doing some animal husbandry and growing some different crops too. It's kind of a project, so that's going on. And then in the background you can see some rooftops of some of the houses for the doctors that live on the hospital compound. This is one of the roads that we would take to get to the hospital. Past those trees, behind those trees was a big open field that was pretty much just a trash dump. And going by there every day, you'd always see, on this road, you'd see pigs running around, goats running around all over town. They just run around everywhere. I don't know how people keep track of which animals are theirs, but you'll see donkeys running loose, sometimes dogs a little bit. Sorry, these are all kind of out of order. Keep going. Okay, we're back to Lamatu's wedding. You can kind of see how many people attended. This was a video. I don't think it'll play. We also had some different outreach opportunities in different villages surrounding Mongo. Within Mongo itself, we have Bellamore Church, which is an established Baptist church, and then there is one house group that meets at the Supervisor Yavi's house right now, and then there's just some Bible studies that are going on. But outside of Mongo, then there's a lot of different outreaches going on in different villages. Some at different stages. So I got to go to one the very first day we had the Bible study at all, and I'll have a picture of that in a minute. And then others have been meeting for 2 years, and we got to see a baptism of almost 50 people just a few weeks ago. So a lot of really exciting things are going on in the different village ministries. So this was a new village that one of our chaplains had contact with someone, and so we went out there on Christmas Eve and had an activity for the children in this village, and then they had a Bible message as well for them. This was another village Bible study. two Bible studies going on kind of opposite ends of the village. So this one had been going on for a while, and my roommate and I, fellow nurse Miriam and I, went with one of the missionaries and chaplain to this, and we just met under the tree and had a Bible study there. And then afterwards, this was a man's house, kind of a little housing unit of mud huts. The man whose house it is that hosts the Bible study, he gave us a live chicken, as a gift. And then we went further on to kind of the opposite side of the town and to another area, and we met under the tree as well. And this was the very first day of starting this Bible study with this group. So they gathered quite a large group of mostly women, but there were a few men there too. I also had the opportunity one week to go out and visit a church plant. So in another village about 45 minutes away called Cacheteri. And this is a couple that was sent out from the Baptist Church Bellamore to lead this church plant in this village. And so this was just the children, and I got to help teach in English, and then my coworker who was fluent in French, she would translate into French, and then it got translated into Moba, I think was the tribal language there. So we did a Bible lesson for the kids and fellowshiped with the adults there. Just some different pictures of the kids. We actually, they were going through Exodus, and so that day we talked about the tabernacle. And so trying to, when you don't have very much pictures or ways to kind of give them the idea of the tabernacle, we just measured out kind of, so they would kind of have an idea for the dimensions. So that's what the kids are standing kind of in the layout of what the tabernacle tent would have, the size of it would have been. And then the building is where they meet currently. They're actually building a building somewhere else, but this is where they currently meet for a church. Pidanam, Madame Henga, is the wife of the man who's leading the church plant. And she became one of my friends while I was there. She would actually meet every week with me and other nurses and teach us, kind of tutor us in French. So I got to know her through that, and then got to go with her to visit the church plant. Also, for Easter, I made Easter breads, and I taught her how to make that and share it with her neighbors and her family. She and her husband, I didn't get a picture of him. You can be praying for them as they lead that church plant. They also lost a child when I first arrived in October. I don't know if any of you remember when, just after I got there, a prayer request I had sent out for a small child who was really sick in the hospital. Her husband works at the hospital, so he's on staff. So it really hit everyone hard, and he didn't make it. The boy died. But they need a lot of strength as she's working with children, and that was really hard for her at first to go back to working the ministry and the church plant with all of the children. But the Lord's helping them, and they continue on with that work. So a few weeks ago, just before I left, I got to see another baptism. I don't know the exact number. They were saying about 50 people were getting baptized, mostly women, but there were a few men also. This was a village that's been, a Bible study that's been meeting for 2 years. And many people made professions of faith, and they finally were going to have a baptism. And they met with every single one of them individually and made sure, went through kind of a study course with them to make sure they understood what it really meant to be getting baptized. So that was really exciting. And if we can get the video to play later, it was really, really fun to watch just their excitement, their emotion coming up out of the water, and then also the celebration that happened after the baptism as well. So to baptize 50 people, they were doing two at a time to try to get through everybody. And it's kind of interesting because we were at this large river. This is the part of the Oti River. And there were a lot of people there doing laundry that day, washing laundry in the river. And then there was this large group of guys that crossed over to the other side and were playing in the water on the other side, but also watching us as the baptism was going on. So there's the whole group gathered together that was baptized, and then the celebration afterwards with lots of singing and dancing, and then food as well. This was a video of them singing. Maybe we'll see if we can play it later. Another ministry also that I was not involved with, but is also a huge ministry there in Mongo as well, is Hope Radio. And some really exciting things happened while I was there. They had a radio tower that had been blown down last year in the spring. And so it was a huge project for this whole past year of getting the funds and then rebuilding the radio tower. And so in February, when I was there, they raised it up finally, and that was an answer to prayers over many, many months that it finally all came together, and they were able to. I don't actually have a picture of it completely erected. I got to go out there the day they were working on putting the tower up, and the guys, not missionaries, it was a team of Africans that do this all over West Africa, but they climb that, and they just free climb the tower and lift up the next level. This is inside the radio, so we got to get a little tour, and Adam Drake and Evan Drake, who are kind of in charge of the project, were showing us as they were getting started now on translating. So their goal is to be able to broadcast programs and also the Word of God in several of the local languages. And so they were showing us how they were working on just translating and recording. I think they were in Genesis, in one of the local languages. This is the building, the radio station building from the outside, and it looks a little bit more done now. They finished the roof while I was there. So the area, Mongo is really heavily Muslim, and we've got mosques all over town, and most of the patients and people we interact with in town are Muslim. But there is still a lot of surrounding villages and people within Mongo that are very animistic as well. And I got to visit a region not too far away, about an hour and a half away, called Tamburma, that is very, very animistic. And they have kind of interesting dwellings, these little kind of mud castles that they create, but it's very, the practices that they do here with animal sacrifices is still a very, very dark place. And it's kind of exciting. We had one of our nursing students in our nursing program is from this region, and he's actually a believer. There's a Baptist church in this town that's very strong from what I've heard, and he's from that church, and so it's exciting that he is in our program. So we just took a day trip and went and saw some of this area. The mounds there out in front of each of the mud huts is where they put the animal sacrifices on. And then these were some of the ladies. They come out and try to sell us the different things they wear and their jewelry and stuff. The baobab tree was a really important tree for them, and this particular one, when they moved to this region from their priests would live here and do rituals in this baobab tree before they got their castles built. This is me and my roommates in actually a museum, kind of a replica of one of the mud castles. So at the end of that trip, we went with one of the missionaries, and he had a contact with this guy who lives in Tamburma, and he's a believer. And so afterwards, we went to his house and met him and his family and got to hear his testimony and hear about how he really is. There's a lot of persecution from the rest of the community there because he has turned away from all of the family tradition and beliefs. So he's kind of an outcast as a believer there. We're going to skip this. So this was another Christian wedding in March that we got to go to, and it was a guy from the hospital. So when there's a wedding, they pick out a certain fabric, and then everyone that attends the wedding can buy that fabric and have an outfit made. So everyone arrives at the wedding with matching clothes. So so this was the fabric for the wedding, and the groom worked in the pharmacy. So Miriam, who's on the far right, she's a supervisor of the pharmacy. She's a missionary from New Zealand. And then Michelle and I attended. Michelle works in surgery. And then Denise is one of the pharmacy techs. So we were all matching at the wedding. And then we got to also participate in the escort for the groom's car as we rode to the church. So the car was surrounded by a bunch of motorcycles, honking and beeping all the way. And this was just some pictures from the wedding. So this was a Christian wedding and a Christian in the church, so a little bit more traditional Christian style. The bride wore white. And I had some videos of her entering the church because they enter. The music is the choir, the church choir is singing all the way, and as they enter, everyone's kind of dancing down the aisle, and it takes about 30 minutes for the bride to get down to the front, but everyone's just super excited, and it's very, very happy and joyous. So this was a video of her coming down. It kind of gives an idea of what celebrations in Togo are like. So as a woman in Togo, the ministry opportunities, obviously there's a lot of opportunity to work with women and also children. And these were some of the women that I got to know while I was there, all of them Muslim. So on the left, you've got Robbie, who had a shop in the market area, and she's very friendly and gets to know all of the nurses and all of the missionaries that come. And she's also a very good saleswoman, and she has really good fabric, so you end up buying a lot from her. But she's had a lot of contact with missionaries, and a short-term nurse last year helped deliver one of her youngest baby. And this year, her son was really sick in the hospital for a while. So, pray for her. I'm praying for her. She's had a lot of contact with missionaries, but I don't know that she's involved in any Bible study or anything yet. In the middle is Mamata. Mamata was in the nursing program, and she was not able to continue with it. So she's still working at the hospital as kind of an upper-level CNA, kind of like an LPN nurse, so she can do some things like nurses. But she is Muslim too, but she is very friendly and just a really hard-working woman, and another person that we would love to see comes to know the Lord. And then Maimuna is one of the nursing students as well, and she seems to have a heart that's sensitive to spiritual things as well, but not ready to make a decision to become a Christian. And I'll have some more pictures of the nursing students here in a minute, but I think most of our students are Muslim. I think there's only 3 that are believers. The rest are all Muslim. And but they have heard the gospel a lot. We share every semester. They have a week of just Bible classes. Every day, every lecture day, they have a half-hour devotion before they start any other classes. They read the Bible. They all have Bibles, and they'll read them in class. We pray with them. They have heard the gospel many, many times, and they're at different stages. I think there are some that are really interested in becoming a Christian, but there's they can't leave. They've got the family, they've got the tradition, the culture that they can't leave yet. So as you see the pictures of the students, be praying for them and for their hearts as we continue to invest in them and work with them and share with them. These other two ladies, on the left is a CB who would come and clean the house that I lived in for us girls, and once we moved out, I don't know that she was going to continue doing that anymore, but she loved working for us and interacting with the short-term nurses. She's married, she's Muslim. She's married to one of the guys that works as a guard at the hospital. So she's had a lot of contact with believers. Azia on the right is one of the seamstresses in town. She's actually Robbie's sister. And so she also has had a lot of contact with missionaries. A lot of us like to go, and she actually made the dress I'm wearing. And she does a really good job. So she's another lady that people are having contact with, and just praying for her heart too. This is kind of small, but Madame Cha also would come to our house and cook for us girls if we wanted her to help make some food for us. If we didn't have time to cook, she would also do shopping, groceries for us. She was a believer. Her husband worked as a nurse with us, and they attended the Belmore Church. So she was a really neat, quiet, spirited lady. We enjoyed working with her too. So I talked about opportunities for ministry with women and then also children. Mongo is full of children all over the place. And as you're walking through the streets or riding your bike through the streets, they will yell out at you, or they will run after you, yelling "Baturi, Baturi, Baturi," which means white person in the local language. But if you stop, they'll love it if you wave at them. They'll wave back. If you stop, they'll come up and they'll try to give you a high five or shake your hand. So here, I was waiting outside my friend's house, and so they quickly surrounded my moto and were talking to me. So there's children everywhere. There was a French club that they used to have at the hospital every Saturday, and a lot of children would come from around town, and they would do games with the children, and then also would have a Bible story. That was not going on while I was there. One of the main missionaries who had kind of been in charge of that ministry is no longer in Togo. So as I was leaving, that's one ministry I had been excited about trying to be involved with, and then it didn't happen while I was there. And as I was leaving, they were talking about trying to start it up again. But I didn't have any consistent interaction with consistent children other than our patients in the hospital. But anytime you were in town or in market, there were always children to talk to and show love to. These were a couple of videos I had of some of the interaction with the kids and how they just come up to you. So just some more pictures of the hospital staff. This was the last nursing meeting the week before I left, and I was doing some training with all of them, and we got a picture afterwards, so combined nurses and nurses' aides. On this one, we have up on the right is Melissa Friesen is one of our nurse practitioners. She's a career missionary there. And on her left is a translator who works in the clinic. He's a Fulani. The Fulani people group is one of the unreached people groups that the missionaries at Hospital of Hope are particularly interested in trying to reach out to. They are traditionally Muslim and kind of looked down on by the rest of the other tribal groups. They're kind of looked on kind of like gypsies. And Seydou has been working at our hospital for a while now as a translator. He can speak several different languages, and he is really interested in spiritual things. One of our chaplains is also Fulani, and I know he's had a lot of interaction with him and conversations with him. And from what I've heard, he wants to become a Christian, but he's still waiting for permission from his family to do that. So he's really close, and we're all praying for him that he can make that decision to follow Christ. On Christmas, right around Christmas, we had a combined service with missionaries and Togolese, and he came to that. So we're praying for his journey. The other picture is our chaplains that work at the hospital, and we're missing Lama too, actually, who's not there, and then Josh Barber is our missionary that works with them. But these men and women every day come in and are talking to patients, praying with them, sharing the gospel with them, and then carrying on Bible studies in various villages around Mongo as well. We have the top picture is some of our pharmacy workers, and then the other picture is some of our guys from lab. So these are some of the people, as a nurse in the hospital, I would also interact with these departments as well. These guys are radiology technicians. The guy in green, well, the guy that's not wearing the red jacket, Rashid is the supervisor. We had an American missionary, Scott, who in December returned back to the United States. And so he trained these two guys to work in radiology and handed over the department to them. And Rashid is Muslim. He's not a believer. So he's also a guy that's been invested in a lot and heard the gospel too. Top picture is Yavi, our nursing supervisor, and then a nurse, an aide, and Amivi, who is the supervisor of our unit secretary or ward clerk. So they handle all of the paperwork at the nurses' station. Some more nurses and nurses' aides. And then this was the last four roommates, the last four nurses that lived together just before I left. And then the girl in blue, Nichelle, is going to be leaving soon as well. Megan and Ashley will be there for they'll be there till the end of October. So these were some of the other nurses that I worked with and lived with. Can't see him very well. The guy on the right in the motorcycle is Sambo. He's one of our nurses' aides. He's Fulani, and he became a Christian about a year ago. And he's been growing in the Lord and going with the chaplains to Bible village groups. He has been really sick recently, and actually the week before I left, he came in unconscious to the hospital. And I don't think the doctors really ever figured out what was going on. Later on, he woke up and he got discharged later. But we were really concerned about him. They were really just some really weird things going on with him. And at one point, someone kind of questioned if he'd been poisoned or not. I think he has faced some persecution with his decision to follow Christ. So be praying for him, for his spiritual growth, but also for his health as they still are trying to figure out what's going on. A couple other activities I did while I was in Togo was there was a team of students from Liberty University that came in January. So I was in charge of organizing they had about 3 days with us in Hospital of Hope, and so I got to coordinate their shadowing in the hospital and the different events and work with them. That was really fun. And then getting to know the missionary kids as well and working with them some, doing some activities with them while the moms are teaching. We have a preschool program where we help watch the little kids in the mornings while the moms are teaching. And then this was during the team meetings, 2 full days of meetings that all the parents had to go to, and so we were watching the kids during that time. And then I just had a picture of my transportation when I was in Togo. So I was able to get a motorcycle, and it's about 3 miles from the house where I lived to the hospital, and so most gals ride a bicycle back and forth every day. And I was going to the hospital almost every day, and so I was really thankful I was able to get a motorcycle, and it made transportation a lot easier back and forth, and was able to take other people on it with me as well. And so that was a huge blessing, and that was made possible by offerings and support from you folks and others as well. All right, so that's kind of the end of the pictures. Where are we at on time? Okay. It'd be cool if I could try to get some of those videos to play, but I'd have to go back and find them on the drive.
Why don't you get that one, the big baptism
The baptism.
celebration?
Yeah.
I think your dad is going to lead us in a song here with
Okay. The song we're going to sing is one that went through my head a lot while I was in Togo. It's in Spanish, but it's kind of encompasses the reason why I was in Togo, there to help people physically, but the most important is spiritually, sharing Christ's love and seeing the gospel change people's lives. And so this song, hopefully we can tell you what the words are in English so you can understand what we're singing. Okay, there it is. Kind of wraps up, my why I was in Togo, what I was doing there.
I'll let Annie work on seeing if we can get this video to function. Randy asked if I would give a word about where we are in the process with Heidi and Sandra. We began this process about 10 months ago. Actually, Randy and I had a conversation in April, a year ago. And we began to gather paperwork and that kind of thing. Finally, papers were presented to request an R1 visa, which is for a religious worker. Those papers were submitted the end of February. In the meantime, Heidi and Sandra wrapped up where they were working in Nicoya, which is a part of Costa Rica that is very, very hot, very humid. It had been very draining for them physically. They moved to San Jose, which is up in the central part of Costa Rica on the Central Plateau. And they have been involved in with a church in San Miguel de Heredia, living in the parsonage there, but also participating with the church, and they are helping in several other churches in the San Jose area, and Heidi has been traveling some to other parts of Costa Rica. This week, in a conversation with a fellow who is a missionary with Camino Global, who actually started the church in San Miguel de Heredia, commented that he is hearing really, really positive things about the ministry that Heidi and Sandra are having. So they are getting people together. They have seen some professions of faith. They are working with leadership development in different places. So that's where they are in their process. If you go on the website and track down the receipt number for the receipt of the visa request, the end of February, it says for that kind of a visa, it's a 4 to 7 month period of time. But there's nothing definite. And the fellow that's been helping us in Atlanta commented, he said they have certain time frames they've got to meet, and if they're getting to a time break where they've got to have something done and they're not ready, they'll just ask for more paperwork. So it pushes the time out further. So really, I don't know where we are time-wise in this process. God does, and we're trusting in that. So Annie, are you ready for this video? Okay. working. Do you want to use that? Okay, I am going to ask that the folks from El Tesoro who are going to sing, we're going to do this up here. No tengan pena. Con toda confianza pasen adelante, por favor, los que van a cantar aquí con Annie y conmigo. Ahora, por favor. This is really scary. This is really scary. We did not have an opportunity to practice this up here in front, and it's a very, very different reality. So, we're going to do this twice all the way through. The first time you have the English there and you can see basically what it is we're singing. And then we're going to sing it again with just the Spanish, and you are welcome to join. And I think Kelly said he had a son who was going to play the box up here. He decided not to, okay. Okay. So as you look at the video that Annie had, and as you look at this group up here, and as you turn around and look at yourselves, we're the people of God. And we are called as a special people, Peter says, to announce the virtues of him who called us to his marvelous light. So that's this song. Somos el pueblo de Dios, somos un pueblo especial para anunciar las virtudes de aquel que nos llamó a su luz. Somos el pueblo de Dios, sus nos redimió y su Espíritu para darnos poder y ser testigos de él, y llevaremos su gloria a cada pueblo y nación, trayéndoles esperanza y nuevas de salvación, y su amor nos impulsa. Anunciaremos al mundo de su amor y verdad. Somos el pueblo de Dios, somos un pueblo especial, llamados para anunciar las virtudes de aquel que nos llamó a su luz. Somos el pueblo para darnos poder y ser testigos de él, y llevaremos su gloria a cada pueblo y nación, trayéndoles esperanza y nuevos de salvación, y su amor nos impulsa, no nos podemos callar.
Amen. That was wonderful. Thank you, folks. And we're so glad to have you here and to be a part of what the Lord's doing over there in Caldwell with you. Annie, you just experienced, where'd you go, Annie? You just experienced what every missionary since the Apostle Paul came back after his first trip experienced. It's, I think, one of the biggest burdens for missionaries to have all that experience and burden and all the things that happened in 4 years or 7 months and come back and find people that don't want to listen. They'll give you 5 minutes to give you a report. It's crushing. And we want you to know it's not that way here. We'll have you back and you can show your videos and we will hear a lot more. When Paul came back after his first missionary journey, it's in chapter 14, it says that they sailed to Antioch, that's his sending church, and from which they had been commended to the grace of God for the work that they had accomplished. And when they had arrived and gathered the church together, that's what we're here for, they began to report all the things that God had done with them and how he had opened the door of faith to the Gentiles. And then the next phrase, the last phrase of the chapter is, and they spent a long time with the disciples. So we hope you'll spend a long time with us until you go to do this again. And Annie is burdened for a similar need in Bangladesh. Maybe the Lord will take her back to Togo. Maybe the Lord will take her somewhere else. But even if the Lord keeps her in Meridian, Caldwell, he's got to work for her. And we are so proud of you. I can't think of a better way to conclude than Paul's words at the conclusion of his epistle to the Romans. It is in some ways very similar to the benediction that we like to use from the little epistle of Jude, but there is an international element here, the idea of the gospel. So let me just conclude with these words tonight. From Paul, chapter 16, verse 25. Now to him who is able to establish you according to my gospel and the preaching of Jesus Christ, according to the revelation of the mystery which has been kept secret for long ages past, but now is manifested, and by the scriptures of the prophets, according to the commandment of the eternal God, has been made known to all the nations, leading to obedience of faith. To the only wise God, through Jesus Christ, be glory forever. Amen. Could we just stand? Afterwards, we have some food and beverages and stuff in the East Wing, but I would like to close with prayer. And Bruce, Carmen, where are you? In the kitchen, of course. Charlie Morgan, are you in here? Charlie has been involved in our missions program. Bruce is our current missions committee chairman, but Charlie, would you just close in prayer and thank the Lord for what he's doing?
God, we're grateful to be able to gather together in Christ's name. Thank you for imparting your Holy Spirit to work among us. We are needy people, and we're so grateful for the work that you're doing in Mongo, Togo, as well as other places around the world, and right here in Meridian and in Caldwell. And as we gather together as the Church of Christ, we want to praise you for what you're doing in Jesus' name. Amen.
Tem comida lá na outra sala. Vocês entendem o português? There is some good food and fun in the fellowship hall. Please join us.